The lights were hot, cameras flashed. A cacophony of noise filled the room. John, sweat beading on his brow, gripped the podium. His opponent, Senator Davis, a man known for his silver tongue, had just finished a blistering critique of John's economic plan. Now all eyes were on John. The moderator, with a practiced smile, turned to him. "Governor, your rebuttal." The words were right there, burning in John's mind. He opened his mouth. Nothing. Silence hung heavy in the air, punctuated by the click of cameras. John's heart pounded in his chest. He tried again, forcing the words past the tightness in his throat. He stopped, the dreaded stammer rearing its head. A wave of murmurs washed over the audience. Senator Davis smirked, a smug look of victory already playing on his lips. John felt a familiar despair welling up inside him. This was it. The dream, his entire campaign crashing down around him. But then a different feeling arose within him. Defiance. He would not let this define him, not anymore. John's stutter had haunted him for as long as he could remember. He recalled the first time it happened. He was just a boy, standing in front of his third-grade class, excited to share his book report. But when he began to speak, the words got stuck, refusing to come out. The other children giggled, their laughter like shards of glass piercing his young heart. The stutter became his shadow, following him everywhere. The local park was abuzz with activity. A small stage had been set up, adorned with banners announcing John's candidacy for state senate. This was it, his first political rally. As John stepped onto the stage, he saw a sea of faces looking back at him. He felt a familiar flutter of panic, the echo of every taunt, every stifled laugh. He took a deep breath, remembering his training. He looked out at the crowd, not as a man with a stutter, but as a man with something to say. He began to speak. His voice was hesitant at first, the words coming in fits and starts, but as he continued, his voice grew stronger, the words flowing more easily. He spoke of his vision for their community, his passion for change igniting his words. The crowd, initially surprised by his stutter, fell silent, captivated by his sincerity and the power of his message. When he finished, a wave of applause erupted. John had found his voice. John's success at the local level didn't come without its challenges. His opponents, sensing an opportunity, seized upon his stutter, using it to paint him as weak and unfit for office. Political cartoons mocked him mercilessly. Late-night talk show hosts turned his impediment into the punchline of their jokes. The constant barrage of negativity was disheartening. There were moments when John felt like giving up, retreating back into the silence he knew so well. But then he would remember the faces in the crowd that day at the park, the hope he saw in their eyes. He would not let them down. He would not let the bullies win. The national debate stage was a far cry from the local park. The stakes were higher, the pressure immense. John's opponent, Senator Davis, was a seasoned debater, a master of rhetoric. He had used John's stutter to his advantage throughout the campaign, portraying him as inarticulate and unsure. The first question came, and Senator Davis delivered a polished, eloquent response. When it was John's turn, he felt the familiar tightness in his chest. He started to speak, and for a moment, the old fear threatened to consume him. He stumbled, the dreaded block returning, but this time something was different. John had faced his fear countless times before. He had learned that the only way to overcome it was to push through it. He took a deep breath, gathered his thoughts, and started again. This time the words flowed. He spoke with a conviction that transcended his stutter. He spoke of his vision for the country, his belief in its people. He spoke of the challenges they faced and his plans to address them. He spoke from the heart, his words carrying the weight of his experiences, his struggles, his triumphs. The audience, initially focused on his stutter, found themselves drawn to his message. They saw past the impediment, recognizing the intelligence, the empathy, the unwavering determination beneath. John finished his response to thunderous applause. He had not only held his own against a formidable opponent, but he had also shown the nation that true strength lay not in perfect fluency, but in the courage to overcome adversity. The debate marked a turning point in the campaign. People were inspired by John's resilience, his refusal to be defined by his stutter. He became a symbol of hope, proof that even the most daunting obstacles could be overcome. On election night, as the results poured in, it became clear that America had made its choice. John had won. The roar of the crowd was deafening as John stepped up to the podium. The weight of the moment was immense. He was no longer just John, the boy who stuttered. He was John, the President-elect of the United States. As he looked looked out at the sea of faces, he knew that his words carried more weight than ever before. "My fellow Americans," he began, his voice clear and strong, "I stand before you tonight, humbled by the trust you have placed in me, mindful of the sacrifices borne by our ancestors, and grateful for the opportunity to serve as your president." He spoke of unity, of hope, of the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. He spoke of his own journey, of the obstacles he had overcome and how they had shaped him. He reminded the nation that America's strength lay not in its uniformity, but in its diversity, its willingness to embrace those who were different. The Oval Office was surprisingly quiet. The weight of the presidency, the responsibility for millions of lives, sat heavy on John's shoulders. He often found himself alone with his thoughts, the ghosts of his past whispering doubts in his ear. There were days when the stutter returned, when the words caught in his throat like trapped birds. Days when the pressure of the office, the constant scrutiny threatened to overwhelm him, but then he would remember the people he served, the countless letters he received from individuals who found inspiration in his story. He would recall the faces of young children who, like him, struggled to find their voice. Children who saw in him the possibility of a brighter future. He would remember why he fought so hard to overcome his stutter, why he chose to embrace his vulnerability and turn it into a source of strength. John's presidency was marked by both triumphs and setbacks. There were legislative victories and crushing defeats, moments of national unity and times of deep division. But throughout it all, John remained steadfast in his commitment to serving the American people. He governed with empathy and compassion, always striving to bridge divides and find common ground. His stutter, once a source of shame and insecurity, became an emblem of his resilience, a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity. It served as a constant reminder that true leadership lay not in eloquence or charisma alone, but in the courage to be vulnerable, to embrace one's imperfections, and to use them to inspire others. As his presidency drew to a close, John could look back with pride on a legacy defined by courage, compassion, and an unwavering belief in the promise of America. He had shown the world that a stutter or any other challenge need not define a person's life. John stood on the steps of the Capitol building, the weight of the past 4 years etched on his face. The inauguration ceremony was over. He was no longer president. He was, once again, simply John. As he looked out at the crowd, he saw not just a sea of faces, but a reflection of the nation he had served. Hope in the eyes of young children, determination in the faces of working families, and pride in the hearts of veterans. He saw a nation that, despite its flaws, remained a beacon of hope for the world. Certainty that his journey from a boy who stuttered to the leader of the free world was far from over. His voice, once hesitant and uncertain, now resonated with the quiet strength of a life lived in service to others. It was a voice that had challenged perceptions, shattered stereotypes, and inspired millions. It was a voice that had spoken truth to power, offered comfort in times of sorrow, and called upon the best instincts of the American spirit. It was above all a voice that had found its purpose, its power, not in spite of its imperfections, but because of them.